So for a while now, I've wanted to do a series of videos on my channel, and today I think I'm ready to take the dive and start. Let's take this rambly journey together as I talk to you about authors and how I feel about their work. Hi there, I'm Casey. If you're new here, this is I Don't Know What I'm Doing, and today that is all too appropriate. If you're here today, I'm just gonna assume a couple things about you. Primarily, that you also really like to read books. If you're like me, you pick up books for a variety of reasons. Maybe the cover is beautiful. Maybe someone recommended it to you and you're just so excited to read it and talk about it with them. Or maybe you've heard so much about an author from friends, from the internet, from whatever algorithm you are a part of that you're like, I'm finally gonna give this author a try, and you're just so excited. Or perhaps you're even hoping to redeem an author who has failed in your eyes before. You gave them a try previously and the work just didn't resound with you. It didn't sit right with you. There was something about it that you didn't connect to. Left you wanting a little more. Maybe the characters in the previous work just were really two-dimensional. They just didn't do enough. They weren't really fully realized. Or perhaps you've read other works from this author, maybe even several, and this is your last hurrah. This is their last chance to really impress you and for you to continue reading their work. The last point is the one that I really want to talk about today. And primarily, I want to talk about it by talking about my opinions about it and about my opinions with authors who I've had this journey with and what I think of their work and why I'm not going to continue with them. You know, talking about my own opinions, not talking about other people's opinions, and literally just doing an opinion video, typical YouTuber influencer behavior. Whenever I pick up a book from an author who I've had a bad experience with before, a lot of different factors go into that decision. A big one being that I've seen other people love this work and I want to have the same experience. I don't want to hate what I read. I want to enjoy what I read. As much as I love to be a contrarian and I love to have a counter opinion or a dissenting opinion and just feel really opinionated and snarky, I really just want to enjoy stuff the way other people do. I don't want to hate what I'm reading, and I don't want to feel like I hate it in, contrast to other people. I really hate the sensation and the experience of picking up a book that I've anticipated for a long time, that I've wanted to read for a really long time, and then I hate it. It's disappointing, it's upsetting, it's bad, it's such a letdown. It hurts in my heart and makes me just cringe and feel so bad about buying the book or thinking I would love it. I hate getting to the end of a book that I've wanted to read for so long and just reflecting on it and feeling like, what the fuck was that? What even was that? And if an author is prolific enough, I really want to give them more chances. I want to think that this was just a one and done, that this was just a one-off, a bad decision, just didn't connect with me. But something in their catalog is bound to make me really feel something positive. I want to give something more chances. I want to give an author more chances. Maybe I was having a bad day when I read that previous book. Maybe it's just me. It often is. Maybe this one just wasn't for me, and that's okay. So I pick up a book from the same author, and I hope for different results. Maybe it's 6 months down the line. Maybe it's 6 weeks. Maybe it's 6 days. Maybe it's 2 years. But I want there to be a different outcome. For these authors I'm about to talk about, there just usually isn't. Another key factor in these decisions is money. How much money have I wasted on buying something from an author that I had no reason to think I was gonna love, that was gonna be a new all-time favorite, but I was still convinced anyways. This year, I've made a very concerted effort to spend less money on books, especially those kinds of books. It's such a waste, and it feels so bad to get to the end of 1, 2, 3, 4 books by an author that I bought, some at full price, just to hate, and just to be like, why did I do this to myself, and why did I do this to my bank account? Realizing that you have spent $20 or more on a book that you had no reason to believe that you were gonna love and that you ended up hating, oh my god, feels terrible. So I often give these authors as many chances as possible, especially when I've spent money on their books. I want to at least read the books that I have purchased, and I want to make it through as much of the catalog as I reasonably can. because I don't want to be wrong. I don't like being wrong. Being wrong sucks. I'm a Taurus and I'm filled with anxiety. I don't like to be wrong for a lot of reasons, but unfortunately I am. I often am. There's really no getting around that fact. And so let's talk about the times I've been wrong. I'm going to talk about 4 authors today, and I would like a quick disclaimer that some of these authors have written things that I've really loved and that I've really connected to or I found very enjoyable, but for one reason or another, I'm not going to come back to them anymore. And it's not all of the authors here. Yeah. Some authors I've read multiple things from and hated everything that I've read or disliked everything that I've read. There's a variety here. Let's start a little tepid, shall we? Christina Henry. I've read 3 books from this author, and only one of them made it higher than a 2-star for me. That's this one right here, near the bone, coming in at a nice strong 3. Primarily because it wasn't as bad as I expected it to be. What a lovely way to enjoy a book, right? If I were to examine her previous works and why I don't think they're for me, the biggest correlation is her fairy tale retellings don't do it for me. Lost Boy was overall just disappointing and felt a little aimless, and The Girl in Red was just mid. It was not that interesting and not that engaging and overall so disjointed and just a letdown. So did this one's success primarily due to the fact that I expected it to be worse than it was and to have a worse time with it than I did make up for the 2 previous works that I really didn't enjoy? Absolutely not. I'm including it in this video. You have comprehension. You know. I'm not returning to this author again. There is just something about Amakatsu that I really want to love, but I just can't. I didn't pick up 2 subsequent works of this author's after reading this big ol' pile of disappointment, just to be frustrated and upset. I really wanted to love her. I really wanted to love her work. I think what she does sounds very interesting, and then when I get to the book, I'm left wanting more. So much more. Like with Henry before her, there is just something about her retellings of historical events that don't sit right with me. The Deep and The Hunger are both retellings of real-life events with supernatural twists, and both I found to be very bad. For one reason or another, both very different books with very different reasons why I hated them. I thought they were just utterly lackluster, and more than lackluster, I found them to be tedious and a slog. And there is nothing I hate more than trying to read a book that I have been so excited about and I am convinced that I'm going to love than for it to just feel like trudging through mud to get through. And while I will admit that the one book I have enjoyed from this author, Fervor, also is retelling historical events with supernatural twists, it's actually good. I think you can see the love and the care that the author had in that book that is lacking in these other 2. I don't have The Deep anymore, I just have this one because I'll never get rid of it for reasons I'm not going to go into. But there is just something different in the way that the Fervor is written than the way these other 2 were. And I think it's an intense care and an intense love for what the author is retelling versus reimagining of some stories that most of us know and trying to make them a little bit more entertaining. And maybe if The Fervor was the last book I had read from this author, I'd still try to give her another chance. But unfortunately, I bookended my experiences with her with 2 of the worst books I have ever had the misfortune of reading. Moving on to an author I'm very sad to put in here, Eric LaRocca. I want to love everything this author does. I want to be terrified, grossed out. I want every experience to feel like swimming through effluvia, and it doesn't. This author is so hit and miss for me. Like many other people, I was absolutely enraptured and absolutely entertained by Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke, and unfortunately, things have gotten worse since that book. The only physical copy I have here is this collection of short stories, The Trees Grew Because I Bled There, and this is such an encapsulation of my experience with this author. Some of the work in here is absolutely 5 stars, incredible, engaging, weird, gross, but in a good way. And some of it's 1-star trash. It doesn't handle subjects with any sort of nuance or delicacy in places I think it is warranted, and it just overall left me feeling like there was just something lost between the good work and the bad. The last thing I read from this author was the collection of short stories The Skin Was Once Mine and Other Disturbances, and I won't be returning to this author until I see more people reading and loving something he does in the future. I want to leave myself wiggle room with this author just because I think right now he hit a level of success and everything he's writing is being pushed out and published. And I just think with a little bit more editing, a little bit more time, he could write something that I find very enjoyable again. But unfortunately, I'm just gonna have to wait until that happens and possibly never come back. By the way, these are all just my opinions. You can take them or leave them. It's just me being opinionated today. And lastly is truly the most hit and miss author I have on this list, and that is Grady Hendrix. I have 2 physical copies of his books. This one, The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, and My Best Friend's Exorcism, both of which I gave 5 stars after I read them. I loved both of those incredibly, and unfortunately for me, I read them back to back. So I thought I was looking at a new all-time favorite author, and then I read The Final Girls Support Group and really hated everything about it. That book was so bad it made it to my worst books of the year that I read it, and it really soured me on this author. Even knowing that that was an earlier piece that was being published while he was working on his next work, it didn't make up for the fact that it was just bad. It was such an exemplification of what I see other people criticize, particularly this book for, of mishandling female characters and exclusively writing female characters and not giving them enough agency or credit or enough of a personality. And it made me question my love for this book. It made me scared to go back and reread it, because what if I was just not paying enough attention when I read this? What if I was just pulled in by the flash and the excitement of it, and I missed all the bad parts of it? And you would think that the next book that I would read from him would maybe bounce back a little bit. But I DNF'd that bitch so fast. That is How to Sell a Haunted House, and I try not to be super opinionated on YouTube, which I think is kind of a bad thing sometimes, but I don't want to be as opinionated as I am in real life, because I want to invite conversation. I hated that book so much, and I hated everything about it. I could tell so quickly that it was going to be, oh, the terrible people that we spent the entire first portion of this book saying are terrible, we're gonna just make up with them because they're family, and you should just make up with your family. And I hate that theme. I hate that theme so much. It is bullshit in fiction, and it's bullshit in real life. Just gonna say it. Just gonna say it how I feel it. It's terrible, and it's awful. So I looked up spoilers before I could complete the whole thing, found out that's what it was, and just said no fucking thank you. And so with the front end being books I loved, and the back end being books I hated so much, one of which I didn't even finish, I am terrified to pick up anything else from this author, because I think it's just going to continue the downhill trend for me as far as my enjoyment is concerned. And one of these days, I know I'm gonna come back to this, and I'm almost positive that my experience will be so wildly different because I will just be a better reader. And while it makes me sad, it also makes me a little angry at myself for not having seen it sooner. And that is why I won't pick up any more Grady Hendrix. Okay. Okay, thank you for sitting through this video with me. I'm messing with my hair because it's 1,000 degrees up here and my neck is so hot. I hope you had a good time with this. I plan on doing more of these videos where I talk about my opinions about authors and specifically certain categories like favorite, least favorite, unpopular opinions, and more hit and miss authors that are more miss than hit. So please feel free down below in the comments to tell me your opinions about these authors, or tell me about authors that you have had a lot of hit and misses with that you're just not willing to take the chance on anymore. I will see you next Friday, and I hope you're having a wonderful day. Bye, pals.